So how do you get out of a tornado situation in your life? The situation concerns relationships, and the situation concerns the most difficult part of relationship, which is separation after a very long-term relationships. But this can happen, this kind of feeling can happen in any other situation, in any major change in your life. For example, you change in your profession, or you change in your place of residence, or there are some major developments in the family or in the community. Well, first of all, there is a fantastic quote which I would like to read by Carl Jung, which puts everything into perspective straight away, because basically what he is trying to say, and I'm just going to read this quote in a minute, is that situation which feels like sudden development, sudden tornado, sudden avalanche, sudden hurricane, anything like that, usually have some warning signs. The problem is we don't recognize the signs. And this is why suddenly we feel like we are in the middle of this. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. And then he continues, that is to say, when the individual remains undivided and does not become conscious of his inner contradictions, the world must perform, act out the conflict and be torn into opposite halves. Which basically what he's trying to say is that there are no sudden situations. Of course, there are sudden situations, like in real life, some natural disaster would be sudden situations. But situation which happens in relationship, situation which happens when you are trying to change your work situation or your residence situation, those situations usually develop. It just whether or not we are paying attention to warning signs, whether or not we act upon these things, or we stubbornly cling to the old model. And we all do that. I did this many, many times. And every time there was this feeling that really, I need to let go of the situation. Really, it's time for change. Really, it's time to move somewhere. But it's scary. The territory is uncharted. You don't want to go. So there is a certain degree of comfort. There is a certain degree of familiarity. And what I would say also about relationships specifically is that in relationships, there is this feeling like, if you need to end a relationship, you failed, which is not necessarily the case. Because basically, if you consider the entire relationship long and full of color and full of details and full of different situations, that basically sometimes what happens, it wasn't a failed relationship. It just ran its course because for whatever reasons, people's way diverged, or they couldn't quite learn how to communicate on a constructive level, or there was some kind of situation which was external to the couple, but it affected deeply the couple or one party or another party. So there are many, many situations like that. And it's important to see that actually there is no such a thing as failed relationship. Each relationship teaches us something. Each relationship adds colors and life and light into our life. It's whether or not we can extract this gratitude out of tears and suffering in this particular moment of time. This is a question. But ultimately, if you come from a position of gratitude and from a position of experience, and not from a position, good relationship, I succeeded, and bad relationship, I failed, this is much more complex than that. So I think this is a really nice starting point on which we can develop and see situation from this perspective. So first, we determine where we are in a relationship to a tornado. So this particular question was asked with the view that how do I get out? So there is understanding that there is nothing more to learn by exploring tornadoes from inside, and there is just desire to get out, and there is a certain course of action. However, if we still remain in this tornado, then maybe we are not quite sure. Maybe there is something to be explored, maybe something to be learned by staying in this situation. So this is really, really important to understand. And there are several tools, and I'm going to go through them one by one. If situation is certain that it's gone on for long enough, and you're certain that you just want to get out of a tornado, this is very simple. Basically, where you are in tornado, this is A. where you want to go outside, on the surface, in the safe, on a new level. This is B. And then you go from A to B, and then you can construct a map. So first you need to detect this little exit out of a tornado. And sometimes you need helping hand, and sometimes you need all helping hands you can find. And so there will be helping hands to help you out of a tornado, but first you need to see where exactly you want to go. And depending on where exactly you want to go, that it will make your A to B plan, escape route, more certain and detailed and practical. One of the brilliant tools in order to get from A to B is a technique which is called letter from the future. And probably you heard of it, and probably you didn't think much of it, but trust me, it's very, very powerful, especially when it is done in situations like that, when you are in a big change, you are in the middle of a huge transformation, because this space inside the volcano is transforming you. You letting this space to transform you, you going with it. And this is something completely different when we actually need to face and stay in tornado, and we're going to cover it next. But if situation calls for escape route, then basically letter from the future is a fantastic tool. It's very simple. You sit down right now and you write a letter from the future, from your future self, say 5 years old, 10 years old, whatever, to you now. And you're not mentioning the situation you're on at all. You're just mentioning the life that you intend to live in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. So imagine, no matter how big and damaging and difficult this tornado is, it is going to pass. And then you will look back at this time in your life and you would clearly see, my God, I survived this. It was indeed tornado. So from this space, when it is saved, when the situation is somehow resolved, if there are obviously remaining questions about relationships, about work, about where to live, about new social circle, about new identity, if you wish, then basically all those situations are going to get resolved. So you're writing a letter and you're just describing your typical day, your typical week. So you're just writing a letter from the future. And this is your point B. This is where you're going. And then as soon as you put this vision very firmly in place, you will start seeing the very first step that you need to do in this direction. And this is something that we can, of course, work more in details in the cafe, because this is a plan. This is your business plan, if you wish, for your development, for your moving from one situation to another, and for certain steps. And this is really, really easy. But first, you need to have this vision. And this vision should be attractive enough for you to actually have, this impetus to gather your strength and get out of the tornado by taking all the necessary steps. So first, a letter from the future.